Hello there, I'm Cate Hamilton. I run a language company called Babel Babies, and we do online sessions for parents and children to discover languages together. And I have been reading with interest Eowyn Crisfield's book, Bilingual Families. And today we're going to have a little chat about the book. So hi, Eowyn, nice to see you.
Hi, Cate, nice to see you.
Could you tell me, why have you created a practical language planning guide for families? What's different about this book compared to some of the other offerings that we might find?
So I've been reading books about raising bilingual children for about 20 years. And one of the things I found is that they often contain a lot of really useful information, but not in a systematic way. And so, you get this interesting fact and you get this interesting idea, or you get all these ideas for activities, but there's nothing in there to really help parents go from nothing to something, and to really think about, their child from birth to 18, that kind of longitudinal journey that is required to become bilingual. And so when I was putting the book together, my idea was really to put into paper the system I developed working with families over about 15 to 20 years on family language planning. So what are the key questions I asked? What are the templates I used? How did I structure it so I could give them a family language plan? And then how do I put that into a book so families can do it for themselves? So the goal was really to take myself out of the equation so families can read the book and make their own family language plan with the required knowledge that they need to be successful.
So that's really interesting. One of the things I like about the book is that you're empowering the parents to go and be the spokesperson for their child, say with medical professionals who might not understand bilingualism, or even if you are at the point of starting school. And I have heard anecdotally quite a few parents have been told to stop speaking their home language. And that's one part of the book. I feel that you're giving parents the tools to be an advocate for their child. Does that sound a kind of a fair summary of how it works?
Yeah, and I think one of the things I say to parents all the time is you need to know the theory. You have to understand bilingual development, because if you don't understand it, when people give you bad advice, you won't recognize it as bad advice. And bad advice abounds, schools telling families to stop speaking their language with their children and start speaking the school language. And so a little bit of knowledge goes a long way in bilingualism. And so, my fifth, step is talking to other people about your process with your children. And it's in there that the advocacy comes, that if you know about what you're doing, and if you have a plan and feel confident in it, you're more likely to be able to have really constructive conversations with other people in your child's world that will be helpful to them in understanding their bilingual development as well, because there's not kind of common knowledge of bilingual development. Certainly in the Western sphere. And so parents need to be able to be knowledgeable and advocate as well for their children on occasion.
I think that's really great. And also it's not an off-puttingly sort of dense book with too much information, but it has got, I feel, a really nice balance of the theory and also how to bring that into your own family situation. Because there are some general sort of, I suppose, trends or some ideas that apply to all families, but of course every family is very individual, so they would want to know how it works in their particular situation. And I felt that was a really a lovely way that you presented it, that family can actually apply the information to their specific situation. So that's fantastic. And another thing that I thought was really interesting is that you talk about the longitudinal bilingualism. So a lot of the people I've spoken to have got quite young children, usually under the age of 5, and there's a focus on, are they bilingual at 2 and 3 years old? So that was a nice aspect of the book as well, because why do you talk about the long term and the longitudinal aspects of it?
The earliest years of raising bilingual children are the easiest. And that doesn't mean they're easy, it just means they're the easiest. So when your child is spending the majority of their time with your family and you're in charge of what languages they're hearing and how long and in what contexts, you have a lot more control. But once children start school, so much of their language development happens now, from other people and in a non-home context, that we lose a lot of the kind of control is a kind of a negative word, but the influence that we would have previously had. And so I meet people all the time who say, oh, my child's 3 years old and they're perfectly balanced bilingual. This thing is easy. Like, we'll wait till they get to 13. And so it is, it's understanding what you need to do to continue to maintain it, because your goal should be as a parent, getting them to the day they leave home with as much of your language or your languages as you can, so that they can take them with them as adults. And that's, it gets trickier as they get older.
Great. And that's another thing that your book does as well, is that flexibility to know how to react as new situations arise, because obviously, families may well move country, or different things will happen. There are external influences like starting school. And, like you said at the start of our chat, if you don't know the theory a bit, you don't really know how to think on your feet. And so I think this book's really empowering for the long term, and that's really exciting. So
yeah, and that book kind of sat in my head for many, many years, and I edited and revised it over and over and over to make sure it had absolutely the core knowledge parents need and nothing else, because I didn't want it to be too long. I didn't want it to be too theoretical. I wanted it to really be practical, but at the same time comprehensive. And so, interestingly, I had the first conversation with Multilingual Matters about the book in about 2012, and I didn't write it until 2018. And it was because I needed that time to really kind of continue to develop myself in terms of how I support families and parents well enough to be able to put it down in a book form, because it's not a program, it's a guide. And so it's not, here's all the answers and here's what to do. It's, here's a lot of information and some situations and some information and suggestions, but ultimately parents still have to be active, and children also are a part of the process, and every child is different.
Yeah, I think that really comes across, that you've got your practical experience, that you've run this in real life with so many schools and families. And I think actually you have kind of captured in a nutshell exactly what parents need to know. And I think for educators as well, it would be a really interesting read to know how to work with families who've got languages other than the main society language. So I think it's super. So thank you so much, Eowyn.
Thank you very much.
It's been lovely to talk to you about your book, and I hope that lots of families find it really useful and interesting.
Thank you. So do I. Have a nice day.
Cheers. Bye.